Hi and welcome. I'm Nicola Humber, founder of the Unbound Press. And as part of the Unbound Press's 1 year birthday celebrations, which I'm incredibly excited about, and I can't quite believe it's been a year since we launched the Unbound Press. But I wanted to bring together some of our authors who've worked with us, with me over the past year and released their books to share their unique magic with you. Obviously, you have access to their books, but I wanted you to be able to dive a bit deeper into that. So I'm very excited today to be joined by Anna Sansom, who is author of Desire Lines. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
It really is. And we are going to be talking today about writing as your unbound sexual self, which is very exciting for me personally. And yeah, quite intriguing actually. I'm really interested to know some more about this, like I said, personally, because it's not necessarily something I've explored in my writing, Anna. And I think a lot of the people watching might feel the same. Maybe
Mm.
it's something that they're intrigued by, but it's like, how on earth do I approach this? But before we dive in, I'd love you to share some more about yourself, Anna, who you are, and about your writing and your experience of writing in this way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, first of all, it's so exciting to have this opportunity to talk about this topic because, as you say, often it's not something that we explore. The other thing, just to add, is that my cat has appeared
Oh,
and she's
lovely.
she's twining around. So if the screen starts wobbling, it's because my cat's busy rubbing up against everything. Because
Your cat wants to know more about
yeah,
erotic writing.
she can't resist the energy of these kind of sessions.
I
She's
love it.
just here. She
Yeah.
is. Just to prove I do have a cat here. Here
Yeah.
she is.
She's like, no, I don't want to be on camera.
No, so sorry. Back to me.
Yeah.
um, for those watching who don't already know me, I am the author of a book called Desire Lines, which is published by the Unbound Press. It was published in September of this year, so September 2019. And it's been such an exciting process to share with you, Nicola. I mean, it's just been a joy. But um, to tell everyone a little bit more about who I am, first of all. So I'm in my mid-40s. I live in a small town in the southwest of England with my wife and our two cats. Well, there's only one here just now. And alongside that, I'm also an erotica writer. And I have been for over 20 years. And this is what I really wanted to share today because I guess a key element for me is that the writing that I was doing when I was in my 20s is different to the writing that I'm doing now as a 40-something. And I think that's the incredible thing about writing as a way to explore and express who we are, is that it changes and evolves with us as we go through our lifetime. But just to sort of rewind back to when I was in my early 20s. So I had a lot of questions about sex and sexuality, about who I was as a sexual being, about who I wanted to share that with and how I wanted to share it with them. And at that time, no internet, I didn't know where to go to find the answers to those questions. So I started writing about it purely for myself. And alongside sort of diary writing and journaling, what evolved for me was actually using erotic story writing as a way to explore all of these different feelings and fantasies and wishes and questions that I had about who I was as a sexual woman. Um, and what ended up happening was that I really enjoyed writing the stories. Um, and in fact, I then decided later on to start sharing them with my lovers, which was an incredible thing to do. I mean, it was reflecting on it now, I think it's quite a brave thing to do
Yeah,
because, of
absolutely.
course, whenever we share something of ourselves, we never know how it's going to be received. It's a happy ending to the story. They were received well. And I think what it really enabled me to do was to explore and find out what it was I wanted and then decide what I wanted to do with this aspect of myself. And this has been a constant theme for me throughout my life because as I grow older, my sexuality evolves and changes, my wants and needs in all sorts of areas of my life changes. And having a way to explore that feels safe for me is really important. And for me, my natural go-to is to write.
Yeah.
So more so than to talk.
Mhm.
So maybe if I'd had a trusted friend or something, I could have talked it out. But actually, for me, having that private space just for me to do my writing has always been key. And I think that this is what I kind of want to share as an invitation to other women, um, to really give themselves permission to start exploring who they are as sexual beings, what their sexual stories are, and what they might like them to become in the future.
Mm.
So that's a sort of a brief introduction to why I'm here and why I'm so passionate and excited about this topic.
I love that. And as you're speaking, like I just think it's amazing that you started this kind of back in your 20s and were brave enough to share your stories, because what I'm noticing as we're speaking about this is it feels risky, even like for ourselves, to write
Mm.
about our sexual selves, our sexual desires, like to commit it to writing in some way. And also what comes up for me is hearing about other authors who write in different ways. Like there always seems to be this thing that writing about sex is the most difficult thing. I've heard that so many times. So for me personally, and I'm sure a lot of people watching, it's like, oh my goodness, I don't even know if I could do this. How do you get started, which we are going to explore some more.
Yeah.
I wonder if you've got any kind of like initial thoughts around that.
Yeah, well, I think a part that I missed out of my story, that when I was in my early 20s as well, I was reading a lot of erotica. So I
Yeah.
was reading other people's writing about sex, and I was using that as a way to expand my vocabulary, expand my my knowledge about what different options were out there, to sort of tune into what turned me on and what turned me off. So it was very much a kind of reciprocal process, that I would read somebody else's erotica and get something from that, and then in writing my own erotica or sexy stories or whatever you want to call them, it was a way for me to kind of fine tune it, to make these bespoke scenarios that actually suited me and fitted me as the person that I was.
Yeah.
um, so I think that would probably be my first top tip, would be to read other people's erotica and to read it with a discerning body. I was going to say mind, but actually it's your body,
Yeah, absolutely.
which is going to tell you what
Yeah.
does it for you and what doesn't in terms of erotica. So to sort of, I mean, what better research is there than to give yourself some time reading different stories?
Exactly. We don't want to be in the mind.
Yeah.
The mind might be telling us, no, that's not something I would like. And the body's like, actually.
Yes,
Anyway.
exactly.
So this, what we're talking about here is not necessarily for people who want to write erotica kind of as a career. It's like to do it for yourself as your own personal process. It may like end up being something that you kind of put into a book or a blog or something, but this is very much for yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, I kind of see three main audiences. If you as a writer want to write erotica, so the first audience is, first and foremost, is yourself.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity for you to explore purely for your eyes only. Just go for it. Just whatever it is you want to explore, get it on the page. The second audience is that you might choose to share it with a lover or a partner. And it can be a fantastic way to share fantasies, to gauge their response to something, to float ideas, to seduce them, to titillate them, to keep the spark alive, all those different things. And I think particularly if your partner enjoys writing as well, there's something highly erotically charged about exchanging stories.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps starting a story and then they continue it with what happened next and that sort of thing.
Mm.
So that, and I've done that, and it really works. It's wonderful fun. And then the third audience is the sort of the wider audience. So if you wanted to publish something online or publish something in a book, in an anthology, and again, I've done that. Have to say, unless you're E.L. James, not the biggest money maker out there, unless you are particularly talented and it goes far. but it's fun, you know, writing for a wider audience.
Mm.
Can be a lot of fun as well, and knowing that other people are reading your work and really getting something from it.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
can be, yeah, good fun as well. So yeah, so those are the three key audiences, and I would say I think it has to start with the individual though,
yeah.
because as with all sort of aspects of being unbound, it's what do you need to express for yourself first of all, and then again being discerning about who you share it with, because it's
Absolutely.
a precious thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And
Mm.
I'm really interested in how this relates to kind of the idea of the unbound self, because obviously that's, you know, and living in an unbound way. Because obviously that's all my work is about, and you know what the Unbound Press was formed from. So yeah, I wonder how that relates specifically, kind of writing as yourself.
Yes, I mean, what would you say? Because I was part of your writing mastermind group, and
Mm-hmm.
so when I approached you with the idea that I had for my book Desire Lines and told you it was about this, you know, expressing sexual self, you then had the opportunity to read the work as it came through, to consider whether it was appropriate for the Unbound Press, and I wonder, you know, how did that sit with you with thinking about your body of work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Question for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it really adds something, what I noticed. And as we were working together and reading, you know, the pieces of Desire Lines as it was coming through and hearing you speak, what struck me is, you know, how resonant it was with my work around kind of the unbound self and living in this unbound way, and the 5 principles of living unbound. And I think each of those kind of relates to, if not necessarily writing as your sexual self, um, certainly, you know, relates to your sexuality. And actually it does relate to writing as your sexual self, each one of them, because I think it's through our writing that we discover ourselves, or our aspect of, you know, this aspect of ourselves, or certainly we have the potential to do that. And obviously, you know, out of the 5 principles, the one that kind of feels most resonant is pleasure, like allowing pleasure to be your guide, and actually knowing what brings you pleasure, what's great, you know, what feels pleasureful in your body, being connected to your body. And you know, I loved the way that reading what you were writing and hearing you speak about it prompted me to kind of ask these kind of questions in a deeper way, and more focused on my sexual self as
Mm.
well. And I think, you know, it kind of ties in with one of the other principles is the alchemy of shadow integration. And I think this can be a huge shadow area, an area that we've pushed away our sexual selves, or
Mm.
thought that we can only kind of explore part of that, or what seems acceptable to society. So those two kind of go hand in hand for me, you know,
Mm.
rediscovering, or allowing ourselves to rediscover what brings us pleasure. And you know, if it's something unexpected, it's like, you know, allowing that rather than kind of pushing it away and repressing it. So,
Mm.
and you know, it does tie into the other principles as well, as I think about them.
I think so too.
It really does. I mean,
Mm.
living your gift, living fully in your gift, I think there's so much energy. Like our sexual energy is so important in that area. And also,
Mm.
because it's such a great way of tapping into our desires, that feeds into what we want to create in our life and what we want to do in our life. And if we're suppressing that part of ourselves, it's very hard to access kind of the fullest expression of who we are and who we're here to be, and what we're, you know, what we're here to do in our work.
Mm.
um, and obviously also there's the cyclical nature to it, and you know, as you've spoken, it changes throughout our lifetime. We're both well, I'm quite late into my 40s now, but definitely feel very differently sexually than I did in my 20s. So
Mm.
definitely a cyclical element. And the other principle is like sisterhood, coming together in community.
Mm.
And I think, you know, you've spoken to this, already during this conversation is when we feel able to share that aspect of ourselves with someone else, and it may be a partner, or it may be more widely, it may be with friends, or you know, it may be with an audience. That kind of infuses it with a different quality, and it helps us to discover more about ourselves as well, you know, allowing ourselves to be seen in that way. So yeah, I think you know, this idea of, you know, writing from our sexual self really adds a whole new layer to each of those principles of living unbound. So that's why I was so excited to work with you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful summary, actually. I mean, and I think also for me that all of the work that you do, including the Unbound Press, it feels very expansive and it feels very freeing. And those are qualities that I personally really want for my sexuality. I want to feel expansive and I want to feel free. So I see a lot of resonance there as well. You know, just this sort of general sense of how we can be, and particularly with sexuality, because there are so many external things that tell us how we should be, you know, not just the good girl stuff, but there's so much around it. And so to actually say, but how do I want to be? What's important to me?
Absolutely. And for me, you know, something that's very important, you know, particularly with the Unbound Press, is that women don't feel that they have to tone it down, you know, in any of their writing. But that was really important for me with Desire Lines, that you felt able to write in a way that really expressed what you wanted to share, and that you didn't feel you know, you know, you weren't thinking about, oh, is this acceptable or not. You were able to fully express it. I think very often with writing, you know, the finished product that we receive is not really what the author kind of envisioned initially. It's been kind of like toned down and edited, and you know, obviously you want it to be kind of coherent, but I think the author's voice really needs to come through, and you know, absolutely the full expression of what they want to share. So that was really important to me as well.
Thank you. And what was lovely for me was it meant that Desire Lines could be sort of part memoir, part erotic stories, part questions for the reader to self-reflect. It meant that I was able to draw those things together. And one of the things I was aware about through the writing of that is around language. And I think this is, you know, this can be one of the things that actually stops people from even starting this kind of writing, is what words do I use? You know, how do I even begin to say this or express this in a way that feels like a good fit for me? Especially because so much of our language around sex is used in, you know, different contexts as well. So it could be swearing, it could be you know, putting people down, and it's about, there's a lot of reclaiming there, I think, of reclaiming our desires and our language as well. And as writers, you know, what a gift to be able to have our own vocabulary like that.
Absolutely. So much to explore on this, Anna. And you know, for people who are listening and thinking, how do I get started with this? You know, if someone wants to start exploring this in their writing, what would you advise?
Well, I guess I would say go for it. You know, I would really encourage women just to go for it. And if that means journaling something, or just jotting down some ideas, or writing a fantasy, or whatever it might be, if somebody wants a little bit more help to get started, you know, and where to start, I have got a short downloadable guide to erotic writing, which goes over things like how to know what language you want to use, how to kind of tap into your desires and different scenarios, how to actually write an erotic story, because obviously if you're a story writer, then you'll know about sort of plot and pacing and that kind of thing, but erotica has some different elements to it, particularly things like, you know, how do you describe an orgasm? Is there going to be an orgasm, or are you going to read your characters and your readers wanting more? So my guidebook is available on my website, and it has lots of helpful writing tips, and also quite a few examples from my own writing. Because as I said at the beginning, you know, being able to read other people's erotica is a fantastic way to learn what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So those would be my two key things. One, just go for it. Two, if you want a bit more help and support, then something like my erotic writing guidebook can be a good place to start, with some exercises and just sort of ways in, you know, how do I begin?
Yeah,
And
fantastic.
it also considers things like who do you want to share it with? So is this for your eyes only? Is it, for example, you know, are you writing it as a gift for your lover? We're coming up to the gift season. You know,
Yeah.
is it something? How would that be as a Christmas present?
Wow.
I mean, that'd be quite unique, wouldn't it? To gift them a story. So there's all sorts of questions like that. And if you did want to write for publication, then what do you have to consider, and how can you go about that as well?
Oh,
I've
yeah.
kind of pooled my experiences and knowledge from the last couple of decades and made it into, I think it's an easy, accessible, with the focus on actually writing your own
Oh my goodness.
and having fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that would be helpful for someone who, you know, purely wants to explore their own sexuality and their sexual desires for themselves, and want like a really lovely focused way of doing that. Or somebody who wants to bring this into their writing as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what a gift for yourself as well.
Oh
You know,
my
we talk
goodness.
about giving gifts to other people, but to gift yourself with more knowledge and language and experiences around your sexuality, that, yeah, I think that's very lovely.
Yay. Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Anna. I will put the link to that below this video so that people can go and have a look and download that as well if they desire. You know, tune in and see what you want to do, if you want to. And obviously, you know, if people want to know more about you and what you do, then they can go to your website or
Yeah, my website's the best starting point. Yeah. I'd love to hear from people as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And if you haven't got your copy of Desire Lines as well, hopefully this conversation has piqued your interest in that. I would highly recommend it. Oh, Anna, thank you so much. And thank you so much for being part of the Unbound Press. Like having Desire Lines released within our first year just is so absolutely perfect.
Thank you.
Love
Thank you.
you.
And many congratulations and happy anniversary to you and the Unbound Press. Exciting time.
Many more years to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us today. And like I said, hopefully this has piqued your interest, and yeah, like definitely keep us posted with how it's going. Looking forward to hearing lots about people's erotica writing. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye for now.